Hey group leaders, I want to talk with you today about a foundational part of group life, which is how do you create a good group dynamic? How do you create a space that people can engage, that people want to come back, that people are enjoying themselves, and they're being fed spiritually? So we're just going to go through a few tips for how to do that. And then, as always, this is going to be a growth process for you if you've not led a discussion a lot before. Have a tolerance for needing to grow in it as a skill. Okay. So here's a few things. First, set some clear expectations in your group meeting, okay? Let them know what time they need to be there, what their time together is going to look like. Hey, we're going to spend some time, eating and fellowshipping. Then we're going to move into a discussion time where we're going to share what we've been learning about in God's Word or what we heard in the sermon. And then we're going to move into a time of taking prayer requests and praying for one another, and we'll be dismissed at 8 o'clock or whatever, so that everybody knows what to expect. People want to be able to engage in a way that makes sense, and so if you can set those expectations, it works out better for everybody involved. Okay. Second thing, follow a 70-30 rule. Okay, as a group leader, your goal should be to get them discussing and opening up and sharing. So 70-30 rule would say that as the leader, you really don't want to do any more than 30% of the talking. Okay, you want to encourage your group to be sharing about 70% of the time, and sometimes that can be pretty challenging. There's some good tips that you can pick up from other group leaders that we'll share on the website or on Facebook from time to time. So, for example, what do you do whenever there's crickets? Whenever you ask a question, then nobody says something. A lot of times you need to rephrase the question. Maybe people didn't get it. Or this can be kind of uncomfortable, but I also sometimes will just ask somebody, hey, what do you think about that? Because sometimes people are just waiting. They're like, I don't know if what I have to offer is that valuable, but if they're asked, they'll contribute, and that opens up the door. Then the other thing that can happen besides crickets is that sometimes you've got somebody who's kind of a chronic oversharer. They dominate conversation. And so there's a couple simple ways to deal with that. In the moment, one of the things you can do is just say, hey, on this question, I'd like to hear from somebody who hasn't shared yet. Okay, so that just makes it where the oversharer is not going to be the first one to pipe up, hopefully. And then after group discussion, you may need to just pull that person to the side and just say, hey, man, I love that you contribute. I love how engaged you are in conversation. Have you noticed how several of our other people are not really contributing during the conversation? I think if you would help me out a little bit by leaving a little bit of extra space for people to engage. So you've always got great stuff to share. You always jump in right off the bat. I'm going to ask, can you just leave a beat, let somebody else jump in first, and then you can contribute. Okay, so just invite them to be on your team. Invite them to pay attention to the group dynamic and not dominate. Okay, third thing, keep discussion healthy. Sometimes conversation can take a negative or a destructive turn, and you really don't want that. You want to make sure that you're protecting our leadership, that if people are saying, oh, I didn't like this, or why didn't they talk about this way, you want to make sure that it's showing healthy respect for leadership here. If they're talking about the way other people have handled this poorly in the past and it starts to turn toward gossip or slander, that can't happen. That's sin, right? So it's your job to help police that a little bit. And sometimes you can do it really subtly by guiding the conversation towards something positive. Sometimes you're going to have to be more direct and say, hey, this conversation is getting into a realm that's not healthy. And so I want to make sure that we don't end up slipping into gossip or slander. So let's take the conversation this way, okay? So you can be straightforward about it. You're helping people learn what it looks like to have God-glorifying conversations, and that's part of your job as a leader. And sometimes, it's going to get into, if a conversation gets into a really sensitive place where you can tell that topics are getting really heated, then you might have to, reel it back in and say, hey, I can tell you guys are passionate about this. Let's have this conversation offline after we get done here. I'd love to help you guys process this, but I don't think it's going to go to a healthy place with the whole group talking about it. So let's talk about it after we finish our group meeting. Okay, fourth thing, keep the conversation relevant to everyone. Sometimes you'll have somebody that goes off on this this wild goose chase, right? On something that they're especially passionate about, but you may be able to tell that everybody else is kind of getting glassy-eyed. So it's your job to kind of help reel it back in and point it toward relevance. So a lot of times what you have to do is you have to wait for that gap, and you can call out the thing that you really liked about what that person said, even if it's kind of challenging to find something you really liked. But you can say, man, I really loved whenever you pointed out this. What do the rest of you guys think about that? Okay, so you can kind of redirect the conversation back toward being more relevant for everyone by grabbing a little bit of something that you liked from their comment and bringing it back. And then last thing is to stay connected throughout the semester. Continue just providing feedback to our groups team, asking questions. Whenever you've got a concern about your group dynamic, let us know. We'd love to help, or we'd love to, maybe there's something that we need to give you that we haven't given you. So reach out to us, let us know. Thank you guys. I'm excited about how your groups are going to go. This is going to be life transforming for a bunch of people. Thanks for what you do.